Welcome to the Dostoevsky 2021 project. Today, in my first installment, I will be reviewing Poorfolk that I read recently. My channel is a year project, hence the 2021 in the accordance with his 200-year anniversary. I tend or would like to read and give a summary of all his books in this year and be done by December 2021. Today, Poorfolk, and something that strikes one immediately is all his later themes already in place. You see many of his senses, let's say, or his portrayals of tragedy are already being developed. And you even see similarities between his most iconic characters. To me, Makar is a very staunch example of a blend of Prince Mishkin and Marmedov in Crime and Punishment. Both because he has this tragedy that makes, or this sense of despair that makes him drink, and at the same time be a gentle creature that wants to be nice and caring. So some few things has to be said about the novel, and that is it's very short, and there's no particular place in the novel that makes you think. It was a very controversial piece when it went out, because it was one of the first to portray or give the stance of how poor people lived in desolateness and absolute poverty in St. Petersburg, which shocked many, or at least gave hope, and made people think. Some people even went, or some literary critics went to call it socialist, which I don't think it is. It does not have any, or at least in my mind, does not really portray any political stances in anything. What can be said that all other critics called it is a social work, which is absolutely true. It's really a good novel, or it really makes you see the perspective and understand that many of the people ended up and have the same feelings we have, in the sense that they want to enjoy their stay, but maybe not so much the surroundings, but partly the surrounding, but much more the way treatment that they receive is often not necessarily that pleasant. And it really takes the toll, especially on Varvara, which is the female protagonist in the story, who is a young, almost still a teenager, who's a very young lady who works sewing, has lost her mother and her father, was lost great friends, and now lives under two benefactors, mainly Anna Fedorovna, who is the landlady, who took her in when her father died, who was extremely in debt. Let's say he tried everything to give Varvara her education and spent a lot of money he didn't have on it. Her mother was sick and left alone when her father died suddenly. Same goes for her mother died not too long after they moved in with Anna Fedorovna, where Varvara got a friend called Perovsky, who strikes one very much if you have read the book, that is, of Hippolyte in The Idiot, who's an invalid and sick and very restrained and kind of very solitary person who finds solace in his book. And the most notable part of this novel is when Varvara and Perovsky's father tried to save up to buy Perovsky his books, which they manage, but he later dies. And there's another tragic scene which also sticks to one, is when his father is picking and almost tumbling along the cart where his young son now lays dead, and he's dropping the books trying to follow the procession, and how people look upon it. Makar being the main protagonist in this book, which is a correspondence between Varvara and Makar, also tries to be a young benefactor to Varvara, even though he doesn't have the means. And he tries to portray himself to be a fatherly figure, even though it's very apparent that he is actually in love. And Varvara goes on to question this as well. Sadly, all of a sudden, a new character, an older male, also begins courting Varvara, and even promises her to, if she marries him and goes along with him, a better way of life where she doesn't have to toil away sewing and laboring as she did before. And there has to be known that Varvara is a sickly figure, which also reminds one of Sonia in Crime and Punishment. They have some similarities. Makar really tries everything to make her stay, and even though he doesn't admit it, wants to partner up with Varvara as well, and therefore his tragic urgency, right? And what has to be said, the end of the novel is in haste. You really feel the hastiness of it all, even though it's almost days between correspondence. Another thing is that the experienced Dostoevsky writer really would be the only one who would take this novel seriously. It's really also a biographical inside knowledge to Dostoevsky, not so much a standard work on its own. It doesn't stand as well, at least not in our time. At the time it might have been, because there was interest in social realism, as it's called. But today it's we wouldn't have read it if it was not because it was Dostoevsky who wrote it. Yeah, so this is basically my review of Poorfolk. Another thing is, you could say that Dostoevsky is outfolding himself in this stage. He's not really become the Dostoevsky we remember. He's still a young man, and the book was written between 1844 and 1845, and it was published in 1846. So there has been maybe some part of it that there had been. He was wondering if he should or should not, and he was even encouraged to publish it by many of his friends, even in socialist newspapers. So this is my final review of Poorfolk. Next week I will be giving my review of The Double, who I think is a very underrated novel, at least in my perspective, though it has its drawbacks. Also, I would like to give a general indication of myself. I'm not in any way an expert. I'm just a personal fan, and this is very much an amateur channel. This is not so much in depth, and it's also the first time I have ever made a video. So I don't expect the quality to be great. This is very much most of all a personal channel, but if anyone would find this interesting, I hope you would follow me, because we are going through a lot of material. So if you liked, please consider following me, and if not, that's okay. So have a great day, night, or month, year, hopefully, and see you all next time. Thank you.